If you ever find yourself in this situation, don't do what she did. In 2006, a group of cave divers decided they wanted to film a documentary in one of the most dangerous caves in the world. But only a few hours into their descent, and a freak storm erupts on land, collapsing the entrance to the cave. In order to avoid the huge falling rocks that were coming off the ceiling, they were forced to swim through one of the uncharted sections of the cave. After they've been diving for over an hour, they luckily come across this island in the middle of a tunnel, where they set up camp and wait to be rescued. After 48 hours and no sign of a rescue, the cameraman actually starts filming in case they don't make it out of there. At the same time, one of their crew members does something very stupid.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, Part 8. This shadow is permanently etched on the steps of Hiroshima following the nuclear explosion that killed over 70,000 people. The boy in this photo is Estevan Reiner. The Nazis who took his photo made him put this uniform on, smile for the picture, and knew exactly what his fate would be. 2 weeks later, he was killed in a gas chamber. A similar story for this girl whose photo was just taken by a Nazi photographer after Germany had just invaded Poland. You can tell by her smile that she had no idea what was to come. This photo shows 3 young girls smiling together for a selfie. On the right hand side of the photo, you can see a light which is the headlight of a train which hits them moments later. While this photo appears to be just an ordinary large class photo, the 2 boys at the top left are responsible for the Columbine High School shooting, which at the time was the worst high school shooting in American history and killed 12 students and 1 teacher.
Remember, your Amazon Alexa is always listening. In 2018, a girl named Alexa came home to her apartment to find her creepy stalker landlord in her kitchen. She screams and threatens to call the cops, and he just smiles and says, "I was just checking in on you," and leaves. Feeling totally sketched out, she spends the next few hours down the hall in her friend's apartment before finally going back to her room to go to bed. That night, she woke up to her Amazon Alexa responding to someone in the room. It said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Did you say I'm watching you?" The girl instantly turns on her lights and looks around, but no one's there. So she unplugs Alexa and is about to go back to sleep when she hears what sounds like a man grunting in her closet. As she's staring at her closet, her Alexa turns back on.
This is why you should always lock your doors. A class was playing a game of Kahoot when they heard a voice on the intercom say, "This is not a drill, go into lockdown." The students huddled in the back of the classroom and then the power went off. Minutes later, the students heard the sound of a man screaming at the top of his lungs, running down the hallway. The lunatic man started banging on the lockers and his screams gradually got louder. He then started banging on the classroom window, yelling, "Open up." He eventually left, and 10 minutes later, a voice on the intercom said, a mentally ill person had entered the school and attacked the lady at the front desk. The staff did a sweep of the school and still couldn't find him, so they locked the doors and resumed class. Later that night, one of the janitors went into the utility closet when this happened.
That's a body, bro. What does it feel like? That's a body, bro.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, Part 13. A group of students in India went swimming and took selfies in the water before they left. They later noticed that one of the boys was missing and discovered the top of his head in the background of one of their photos. They contacted the police, who found his dead body floating in the pond. This photo shows a starving little girl trying to reach a feeding center when a vulture landed nearby her, waiting for her to die. The photographer, Kevin, was told not to touch any of the children out of fear of getting a disease. In the Victorian era, families used to dress up their dead relatives and take pictures of them. You can see that the image of the mom and the dad is blurry because they had to wait for the camera shutter to cycle, but the daughter's photo is perfectly clear. The man in this photo is Nasala. He hadn't met his rubber quota for the day, so his bosses cut off his daughter's wife and hand, and then they killed his daughter and wife and then cannibalized them. This photo shows Nasala being forced to stare at his 5-year-old daughter's chopped off hand and foot.
This story has the best ending ever. In 2003, a 9-year-old was home alone playing video games when he thinks he hears his cat meowing on the back patio, so he goes downstairs to let him in. He sees a deranged-looking man standing on his back patio howling at the sky, who then quickly looks at the boy. He grabs a fistful of cigarette butts from the ashtray, stuffs them in his mouth before he starts howling at the sky some more. After the police take the man away, they come back to talk to the boy and his family. Turns out the man had severe autism and lived in that boy's house up until his mother passed away, at which time he was transitioned to a mental institution. He broke out of that mental institution to go looking for his mom, which is how he came back to the boy's house. 15 years later, that same boy is sitting on his same back patio when he starts to hear that same meowing sound, and he looks up and it's the same autistic man walking towards his house. Knowing the man's story, he invites him into his house. The man's face lights up, he runs inside and starts crying. He was finally home. The men become friends, and every week Tom goes home to visit.
These TikTokers accidentally found a body. There's a popular app right now on TikTok called Randonautica that sends you to random locations in your area. Some people find random abandoned places. Some people even found random weird things in the forest. These group of teens were led to a suitcase. But the thing is, when they opened the suitcase, it was a dead body inside.
Wait, open it. It stinks, y'all.
When they opened the suitcase with a stick, it had a horrible stench, later calling the cops, who confirmed there was dead body parts inside.
Boy, did this kid pick a good night to have his phone out filming. In 2008, a teen decided he wanted to film himself playing the very creepy Midnight Game. In a nutshell, you turn off all the lights in your house and you walk around from midnight to 3:33 a.m. And if at any point you stop moving, the Midnight Man will attack you. Around 2 a.m., the kid thinks he hears something in the kitchen, but he also thinks his mind's just playing tricks on him because he is playing this game. But he goes to check it out anyways. When he gets downstairs, he doesn't hear anything, but he does see that his door is now open. And when he goes to shut it, someone pushes back. He sprints away, goes upstairs, jumps into his room, but keeps filming.
Real scary food stories. Before our story starts, Joseph had already taken out 10 people, and they were usually people that were homeless, or people who did drugs. He would usually take out these people under a bridge with an axe. One time he even taken out a lonely fisherman who was under the bridge and caught him murdering. His full name was Joseph Metheny, and even after killing all those people, he opened up a burger stand. Now that he opened a burger stand, he would put his victims in a meat grinder and use their meat as burgers. Eventually, Joseph got caught and told the police that he would sell pork rolls and human meat mixed together, and nobody could tell the difference. He said, if you season them right, they both taste the same. Kind of makes you wonder what's in the sandwiches you're eating nowadays. Like this video if I should do another part of Scary Stories.
Everybody thinks this video is fake until they see what's in the vent. In 2018, a group of urban explorers decided to check out this abandoned factory. As soon as they go inside, they see this warning on the wall. They go upstairs anyways and immediately hear voices from the floor above them. Instead of running away like normal people, they go up to have a look. They trace the voices back to this vent, so they think, and they take their camera and they slide it in to have a look. When they review the footage, they can't believe what they found.
Here are some of the worst things ever found on the dark web, part 1. This is why you should never send nudes. This is the story of Pink Meth. Despite the name, the website Pink Meth had nothing to do with drugs. Pink Meth was a market mainly for men where they would sell nude photos of their exes for a hefty amount of money. But that's not all. Pink Meth would then post these photos alongside the women's names, home addresses, phone numbers, and any other information the operators could dig up. Then a ransom on the content was delivered to the victim. They would tell all the females, pay up to have the photo removed or let the whole of the dark web have access to your personal information, including your nude photos. So never, ever send nudes. Pretty cool.
This is the story about the blind woman who could see ghosts. So this girl who was blind at birth lived with her father on a single ranch house. So because she was blind at birth, she had spatial awareness. Pretty much she knew how far apart everything was based on what she touched. One day in the living room, the blind woman was talking to a ghost named Ellie. So Ellie said to the blind woman her name and asked her why her face was so messed up. So the blind woman then asked, "Why is my face messed up? What's wrong with it?" And at that point, the father then heard the conversation and snagged the blind woman out of the room and said, "Who were you talking to?" The blind woman then replied, "I was speaking to Ellie," and then the father laughed. Over the course of the next few months, the blind woman started speaking to over 13 ghosts. And each time she would speak, her father would get very, very upset at her for speaking to ghosts. So one day, the blind woman fell in the kitchen and had to call the paramedics. And once the paramedics arrived there, she asked, "Can my dad come with me to the hospital?" The paramedic then replied, "Your dad's been dead for 6 years." Make sure to like for a part 2. Here's why you should never record yourself sleeping. So there was a woman who was a chronic sleep talker. One day at work, she was talking to her coworkers about dreams. A couple of the coworkers were telling their scariest dreams, and the woman replied, "I don't really dream, I'm just a sleep talker." So the other coworkers insisted that she record herself sleeping to see maybe if she says something during the night. So she downloads a voice recording app and puts it on her nightstand before she goes to sleep. For the next 2 months, she recorded some really cool stuff up until one night. As she was listening to herself sleep, she heard in the background the door slam. She had no idea why the door would slam because she lives alone. So she listened to the recording of the door slamming and she just went right back to sleep. And while she was sleeping, she woke up to another door being slammed. So she freaked out to go see which door opened because she maybe thought there was an intruder. But to her surprise, she found there was nobody else in the house. So since she's already freaking out, she went back to sleep to try and get some rest. And like every other single morning, she wakes up to listen to herself sleep. She's listening to the recording and she hears a man say, "Nice try," in a very faint voice. Like and follow for part 2.
Creepy True Stories Part 1. Lisa Lamb was visiting the California Cecil Hotel when she strangely disappeared. Surveillance shows her coming in and out of an elevator almost as if she's scared of somebody or possessed or something, seeing a ghost, but there's nobody there. Nobody could explain this strange behavior. One day, customers of the hotel started tasting something weird in the water. When they went to check the water tanks, they found Lisa's body in it. No drugs or alcohol was found in her autopsy. And to this day, nobody knows what happened to Lisa.
This is why you should always be careful what you wish for. So in 2013, a guy actually encountered a genie, and this genie gave him one wish and only one wish. This guy was named Richard, and he wished for his wife to be back with him. But what he didn't know is the genie brought back his wife with him, but she was actually still dead and a living zombie. Follow only if you can handle scary stories. If you can't, don't follow.
This is why you should never lick envelopes unless you want, well, you'll see. A woman in California who worked at the postal office dealt with tons of envelopes. Now, normally she used a wet sponge to wet them, but she ran out of the water, so she decided to lick a couple envelopes to get them closed. In the process of licking it, she ended up cutting her tongue. She didn't think anything of it until about a week later when she noticed a huge lump forming on the side of her tongue. The doctor took a look at it and said, "We need to do surgery and get this thing out of here." The doctor started to incise the lesion out, but then he noticed something crazy. Out from the hole came a live cockroach. It turns out that the envelope had cockroach eggs on it, and when she cut her tongue, the eggs went into her tongue and started forming into live cockroaches. I don't know about you, but I'm never looking envelopes again.
Plastic Surgery has Gone Wrong Part 2. Han Miyoku was a Korean beautiful model. At age 28, she had moved to Japan to further her career and got her first surgery. Her first surgery came out amazing, but later on, she started getting more and more surgeries. After a while, her face became plumped. Unsatisfied with how she looked, she kept going to doctors for surgeries and they kept refusing her. They're afraid of how she looked getting worse. Han Miyoko became addicted to silicone injections and started to buy some off the black market since no doctor would help her. When she ran out of money, she started injecting cooking oil into her skin. This is how her face looked soon after. A lot of people saw this and raised money to help her get a surgery to fix this. But this is all doctors could do. Plastic surgeries are okay to have, but always be careful what you do with your body. Anyways, guys, I've been playing this crazy cat game. It's so fun and addicting. You collect cats, dress them up, and take care of them. I want to see if y'all can beat me and collect more cats than me. Link is in the bio. Download the game and let me know how many cats you actually collect. This game is so fun.
Scariest urban legends from every state. Texas, the Candy Lady. In the 1900s, children in an unnamed rural town began to go missing, and people were blaming it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's window sills, and she would be able to lure them in by leaving notes promising more candy. This story picked up steam when a farmer found rotted teeth on his farm and eventually found the dead body of a boy with candy stuffed in his pocket. While little is known about the origin of this story, many claim that the Candy Lady is real and her name was Clara Crane. Whichever state gets the most likes, I'll do tomorrow.